Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. All right, we're back, and our guest today is certainly no stranger, our good buddy John Mittendorf with us. John works with Answers in Genesis, and we use him as the Dove researcher, and we've been talking about the subject of the 4 blood moons. And John, I have to tell you, I just got back from the NRB, and as big as the subject is in bookstores, it was no discussion at the NRB. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, it's
mainly because I guess there is a lot of interpretations over this. But you know, you and I sat down. We decided to take this on because there are some significant things to pay attention to.
Yes, there is. And by the way, welcome back.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the award.
Thank you. Well,
congratulations on the award.
It's been good to us. Yeah.
Yeah. So our last program, we went through it kind of slow and technical, but I want to keep it very, very simple because it's easy to get diverted with numbers and what ifs and what have yous and all that stuff. So I thought that I would. Here we go. Hey, now we're working. Cool. Okay. So I just wanted to go back and revisit the last program just for a minute and just review some of the stuff because I know we have some people watching this morning that didn't watch last time.
Right.
And so we're up to speed on that, and then take the opportunity to correct something that I said last time. That you and I started talking, and I forgot to show the last
slide.
Yeah, the last slide got me in trouble.
That's all right. Well, hey, we're willing to come back and make it right. Because our whole purpose on this is to take a look at it objectively, because it is such a hot and very popular topic right now.
Right, boy, is it ever. In fact, if you go in the Christian bookstores, even Barnes & Noble, and you say, hey, do you have a copy of the 4 blood moons? Nope. We're sold out. They're flying off the shelves. But we have another order. You can come back in another week and we'll have some more. Wow. So, yeah, it's very popular. So let me go back and just go through very quickly just some basic definitions.
Right.
Because it's easy to get confused a little bit. First of all, a total solar eclipse is when the moon blocks out the entire sun, as viewed from the Earth.
Right.
A lunar eclipse, and let me go to my next graphic right here. A lunar eclipse is when
the Earth blocks out
the Earth blocks out the
moon.
The moon, correct. And the shadow of the Earth then falls on the moon. And then, of course, in a lot of cases, the moon turns to red. And that's because the atmosphere takes the rays that are coming from the sun and actually bends them around the Earth, and they wind up in the shadow, which is called the umbra. Mm-hmm. And it winds up in the shadow that falls on the moon. But what's interesting is that the shorter wavelength lights, such as green and violet and some of those colors, are blocked out. Mm. Reds, yellows, and blacks will make it through. Mm. And that's going to come up when we talk about the counterpoint to this. Okay. So I want you to remember that.
All right.
So basically, that's where that comes from. But basically, what's being talked about is that...
Just tap it, I think. Here we go. Okay, keep talking. All right, I'll get it for you.
Yeah, what happens is that, here we go, the blood moon, and this is where the focus of this program comes from, is that the people referring to this, and by the way, the term blood moon is not an astronomical term.
Okay.
It's normally referred to as a hunter's moon. The blood moon appears to be coming from the people that are involved in this blood moon viewpoint or perspective. So, I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just that there's several different terms for that.
Okay.
Also, if you want to go ahead again, a tetrad, and this is a big deal now, a tetrad is when you have 4 consecutive blood moons. Consecutive. And it's usually within a period of 1 year.
Okay.
Okay? Now, a tetrad can be either 4 blood moons, or it can also be 4 blood moons that will also have a total solar eclipse. It can be either way.
Okay.
Either way. Okay?
All
With me on that one. And let's go to the next one. Then we also talked about last time that the 2 major holidays are Passover and Sukkot. And of course, Passover are the 2 major Israeli holidays, and Passover generally occurs in March or April. Now this is on our calendar. Mm-hmm. Okay. And of course that signifies the exodus from Egypt. And then Sukkot, which is generally September, October, our calendar, and that focuses on God's provision, which is kind of neat. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of neat. Let's go to the next slide.
All right. Keep talking.
Okay.
I get it here.
Yeah, it's a little slow this morning.
Okay.
So, You have Passover and Sukkot. Another holiday that we're going to be talking about here shortly is going to be called Shemitah, and I'll get to that in just a minute. We also talked briefly about Genesis 1:14, and these are two major verses that this perspective relies on. Genesis 1:14 says, "Then God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and days for years." And what is being proposed is that this verse says, however you want to interpret this, but this is what's being said, is that this verse says that the heavens are God's heavenly billboard to announce coming events. Coming events. Okay, you with me on that one?
Yeah. Because I think what they're taking is the last part of it, and let them be signs.
Signs for seasons and for days and for years. And so out of that, that's being interpreted as this is God's heavenly billboard to announce to mankind that something important is happening.
Okay.
The other verse that's commonly used is Joel 2:31. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord.
Okay.
And basically what that's saying is, you see, when the moon turns into blood, that's a precursor to the coming of the great and the awesome day of the Lord. And that's, to a large degree, the way that's being interpreted.
Okay, so what is the definition of the day of the Lord?
The day of the Lord is the end times, is the return of the Lord. Or,
okay, so is it the end?
Or it can be the start of the tribulation in that time frame.
All right, so it's got several meanings to it.
It's got several, can have several meanings to it.
That was my reason for asking that.
Yeah, now let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting is that from AD 1 to the present, when I say the present, I'm talking February 2014.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There has been 7 tetrads. 4 of them have no meaning with Israel or anything that has to do with Israel or prophecy. The last 3, to a large degree, do, depending on how you interpret it. Let's go to the first one. In 1493, there was a tetrad that occurred. In 1493 to 1494, and that was during the time of the Spanish Inquisition. That's when 150,000 Jews were kicked out of Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at that very closely, and this is going to come up when we go back into the counterpoint of this, you will notice that the Spanish Inquisition happened in 1492. So the tetrad of 1493, 1494 missed it by 1 year.
Okay.
Are you with me on that one?
Yeah, I think that's significant.
Okay, yes.
It's a year past.
It's a year past.
Okay.
So from that viewpoint then, it is not announcing something that's coming. If you want to say that, what you're saying then is this tetrad is announcing something that's already happened or is in the process of happening.
Okay.
So you have to be careful with the terminology.
So it happened in 1490.
1492. It actually started in 1412.
Right.
That's when the movement started, and in 1492 it came to a head and 150,000 Jews were expelled from Spain. So this was a year later. Then we go to the tetrad.
What about Columbus, 1492?
That's a whole other subject.
I thought I'd throw it in. He sailed the ocean blue.
Columbus has got nothing to do with tetrads here.
Okay, all right.
Okay, how are we doing so far?
You're doing great. You got a couple minutes here.
Okay, because this is complicated. Okay, then Israel became a state in 1948. All right?
Okay.
Okay. In 1949 through 1950, another tetrad occurred.
A year later.
A year later.
Okay.
So that was not an announcement of things to come because it already happened.
Okay.
Then we have the Six-Day War, restoration of Jerusalem to the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
That was 1967, 1968. That tetrad was fairly close, or it was right on.
Okay.
So basically what's being said is that the tetrads are a major event that is occurring as a precursor to major prophetic events and dealing with Israel.
Okay.
Out of that, we come to 2014 and 2015. And NASA is projecting that a tetrad with a total solar eclipse will happen starting in April of this year through September of next year, 2014, 2015. And basically all the stuff we've talked about in the previous tetrads up into 2014, 2015, what they're saying is all this is leading up to a major event, which can be a major prophetic event, can be the returning of the Lord, can be the start of the tribulation, if you want to interpret it that way. That's a possibility.
Who's saying that?
Pastors Mark Biltz is one.
Okay.
John Hagee is another one, and there's several other ones out there that probably don't have as high a name as they do.
Of these 4 tetrads you have up here, these 2 obviously are scriptural.
Let me stop you just for a second.
Yeah.
These 3 tetrads have already happened. This is the one that is going to happen. So really, this one is out there as far as what's coming.
But these 2 are scriptural. I guess you could equate the Spanish Inquisition to...
You could equate the Spanish Inquisition as something that is happening, persecution to the Jews, but is not really a prophetic event per se.
Okay. But it is persecution.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to say on a limited scale, really.
Yeah.
Particularly when you compare it to World War II.
Okay.
Now let's go to the next slide.
All right. We'll have to do this. We'll introduce it and then come back.
Yeah. Now this is what I want to correct. Last program, you and I started talking at the end of the program, and I forgot to bring up this slide, and then I started thinking on my own, and I got into trouble just a little bit. So,
his home phone number is.
Yeah. So let me go back and correct, and because this is right around the corner. Actually, it's a month and a half away.
Okay.
The tetrad that is projected by NASA to happen in 2014, 2015 is projected to start on April 15th, 14. That's a month and a half. That is on Passover.
It's also when your taxes are due.
Yes. Amazing how that works, right? Okay, then you have Sukkot, which is October 8th, 14th.
Okay.
Then we're supposed to have a total solar eclipse on March 20th of next year, 15. And then we're supposed to have the third part of the tetrad on April 4th, 15. And the fourth tetrad on September 28th, 15.
All right, let me take a break right here. Okay. John Mittendorf's with us. We're talking about the 4 blood moons. And by the way, these notes will be available. We'll take a quick break and we'll come right back. All right, we're back with John Mittendorf, and we're talking about the 4 blood moons. This is a huge topic. There's several books out on it. They're just flying off the shelves, and a lot of people are talking about it. It has to do with a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse, all within a 1-year period, stretched out over 2 years, so to speak. Right. And so we're trying to get our head around this, because some people are saying that this is very significant in Bible prophecies.
And I think also, Perry, what also tends to generate a lot more action on this is that this is projected to start in a month and a half, April 15th of 14. So now if this is something that was supposed to happen 5 or 10 years now, yeah, okay, well, I'll wait till then. But when you have something right around the corner that astronomically is predicted to a large degree by NASA, and then you start linking that up with some Bible prophecies as a possibility of happening, and some people are a little bit more aggressive on the possibility. They say, well, this is a precursor to that happening. You can see how it generates a lot of interest to it.
Okay, so coming up April 15th, we're going to have our first lunar eclipse.
Right, which is on the first day of Passover.
First day of Passover.
Correct.
The next one will be this fall.
Sukkot, which is 6 months later, which is going to be October 8th.
And then between these two, this is significant because on March 20th next year, you have a total solar eclipse.
Correct.
Okay. That's when the Earth blocks the sun.
Correct. When the moon blocks the sun as viewed from the Earth.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, it's the other way around.
And by the way, that is a major event when that happens.
Yeah, you know, Peggy and I were in Hawaii, I think, when one of those happened, and it's a weird feeling.
It is. It's very.
You know what? You don't hear any birds chirping, dogs barking, nothing. Everybody just
and that is also when science discovered the light spectrum.
Yeah, with a hole in the paper.
Yes.
You know,
so you don't burn your eyes out.
You put a pinhole in your.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right.
Yeah.
So.
So now, you have March 20th, 15. Total solar eclipse.
Let me stop there.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that the shadow of this. If this was to be built into some kind of a prophetic thing, you would think that this would have a significant impact on the whole globe, but it doesn't.
It does not. That's exactly right. So let's talk about the counterpoint to some of this just for a minute. But before I do that, I want to say that before I start talking about the other side of the coin that looks at this and they say, well, no, we have some major considerations with this. is everything that's being said about this, as far as maybe a precursor of the end times, a precursor of the return of the Lord, maybe a precursor to the Ezekiel war that's in Ezekiel 38, not Ezekiel war, but the Gog-Magog war in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Is it possible that that could happen? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yes.
Absolutely
All
yes.
of those are possibilities.
All of those are possibilities. But when you take the four blood moons concept, viewpoint, perspective, on its own, there are some significant considerations, I think, to look at when before you put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. This one right here, when you look at the elliptical arc of the moon over the Earth, it will travel in March 20th, 15, it will travel over the North Atlantic and the Arctic Oceans, will be a short duration, and it'll be in combination with weather that is normally overcast much of the time. That area of the Earth, when this total solar eclipse happens, will only be viewed, if the weather is cleared, by 53,000 people approximately. For a major event, you would think that something like this would be visible to a lot more portions of the Earth if the heavens are God's high-definition billboard. So very few people, if any, will see this total solar eclipse.
So then you have to fall back on all four of them in sequence.
Then you have to fall back on all four of these in sequence. And what's interesting is the first one in April, the second one of this year, the second one in October of this year, the third one of April of next year, and only a portion of the last one, September 28th next year, will be able to be viewed in Jerusalem. In other words, the people in Jerusalem will see very little, if any, of this tetrad.
Okay, so why the emphasis on this?
Well, let me talk, before I answer that question, Perry, and keep that thought in your mind. Don't lose it.
It's hard for me. I already lost it. Already forgot it.
Let's talk about, before we forget, let's talk about the notes.
I want to say to our viewers and listeners, John has done an outstanding job on these notes, and they are in full color. So everything we've been showing on this PowerPoint in color, he has printed in color. We have them here at the Dove, and where else can they get them?
They can get them from my email if they want to email me, and my email is hispeoplerejoice, that's all one word, HISPEOPLEREJOICE, at gmail.com.
All right, hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com, or come by the Dove and we have them here.
Exactly right.
All right. They're beautifully done. This is good homework here.
Just a couple of things on this I think to consider. First of all, the Bible does, and these are in no particular order, the Bible does not say to watch for tetrads or attach any prophetic significance to tetrads. Okay. It's not mentioned. Okay. This is coming from outside. Okay. Secondly, remember when I talked about how the rays from the sun hit the earth and they're bent around the atmosphere of the earth? Then you have the shadow, the umbra, which then falls on the moon. Because the colors are blocked out, a majority of them, there's only, if you want to go back one more, right there. Because a majority of the colors are blocked out, the colors that do make it through are the longer wavelength colors, which can be red, yellow, orange, and black. Okay. Therefore, it's a bit presumptuous to assume that the tetrad that's coming starting in April of this year is going to have a red blood moon, because it can be peach, it can be yellow, it can be orange, it can be black. And the colors are totally dependent on atmospheric conditions, which are humidity,
global warming. You know that's going to be thrown in there.
That's another program. Yeah, atmospheric conditions, humidity, and dust concentrations have a major impact on the colors. So nobody really knows what the colors of this tetrad are going to be starting in April. Okay. So to assume it's going to be a blood moon is a bit presumptuous.
And the defenders would probably say that's insignificant.
Yeah, but when you're when you're making the blood moon concept a big deal and you're trying to link it to Joel 2:31, it becomes a bigger deal, because in Joel 31 it says the moon will turn to blood.
I understand that. I mean, what does tie this together is that there's 4 of them in a year period.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. All right. And by the way, the notes, I have a lot more items under counterpoint if people want to go through this than what we're going to talk about today. Okay. Right. And I think also if they want to go to the internet to Dr. Danny Faulkner, who is a professor emeritus of physics and astronomy, Christian, who currently works for Answers in Genesis, wrote an article on this from an astronomy viewpoint. And he brings up some very, very interesting considerations from an astronomy viewpoint that are not mentioned in the 4 blood moons concept.
Okay.
So that's there if people want to access that. Now, it talks about, in this viewpoint, how also that the tetrads and the 4 blood moons are very, very rare, particularly when they fall on the Jewish holidays, and particularly when you have a total solar eclipse, and also particularly when you have Shemitah, which is the Jewish year, Sabbath, of 7 years. And the 7th year falls during this period, which is the day of rest. So basically you have all these things that are coming together during this time frame. And so people are saying, well, see,
you have to recognize
you
that.
have to recognize that. That is exactly right.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that Passover and Sukkot always fall on the 15th of the month, which is a full moon. And that's when tetrads happen.
Okay.
Or excuse me, that's when blood moons happen.
Happen.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So it's not quite as rare as you think it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well.
So
our conclusions are.
Let me go over just one more.
Okay, that one.
As we previously mentioned, Joel 2:31 refers to the moon turning to blood, and it says, "Before the coming of the great and the awesome day of the Lord." Okay. In fact, why don't you go back to that verse? Go back 2 or 3.
Okay.
Right there. This verse speaks of unmistakable heavenly phenomena that will signal the imminent arrival of God's wrath in the day of the Lord. Okay? However, the tetrad of 2014 and 2015 that few people are likely to see falls short of catastrophic heavenly phenomena. That is a biggie. That is a biggie.
All right, and I think what I want us to plug in here, folks, we're not trying to tear down the significance of all of this or discredit those who want to put more into it than maybe we're talking about here today. But I think we're trying to put a balance on the table here as to what's really happening. Because if it's the awesome day of the Lord and it's a judgment, it could be something else.
It could be something else.
I mean, it could be, God forbid, I mean, Iran lobs a nuke over the fence.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It's just that when something like this comes out and grabs everybody's attention. Star of Bethlehem it was another classic example.
Yeah.
It comes out and it grabs everybody's attention. I think one of the major positives to that, Perry, is that it tends to focus people on the Lord, His imminent return.
Right.
Are you ready? What's your relationship to Jesus Christ? And that is a key factor, I think. And this, I think this does that very well.
I'm so glad you say that, because that's the bottom line. If anything, this should turn us to our relationship to Christ.
Exactly right.
These things are important, but if they become your message and Christ doesn't become your message, I think you missed it.
Yes. So I think what we're saying, Perry, is yes, there's some very, very interesting parts to this 4 blood moons concept. However, there's also some other considerations that you should consider along with this that is not as positive to this from an astronomy point of view. But the key is could this happen? Yes, it could. It might not happen. And I think a lot of people that are watching this program are aware of this. Starting in April here, just in a month and a half, all the way up to September of next year, you may never see any of this, and nothing may ever happen. If that happens, don't be surprised.
Okay. Yeah, and if it does,
and if it does, be aware. Right.
I think the bottom line is this drawing you closer to Christ? Is it putting a spirit of urgency into your own heart to share Christ with other people? If this doesn't draw you to Jesus, then I would drop it like a hot potato. If it does, great. Then put it in your processing and move through. Right. By the way, if you want a copy of these notes, and they are beautifully done, come by the Dove, pick them up, or you can go to hispeoplerejoice@gmail.com.
Right.
And he'll send them back to you that way. All right, thanks, John.
You bet. Thank you, Perry.
All right, we'll see you next time on Focus.
You bet.